Well, hello, and welcome to another installment of Communicast, the stories of good people doing great things in our communities. And with me today is my friend Eoin Costello, who is in Ireland. And we met some 5 years ago over a conference, around a conference. And over the period of time since then, we paralleled each other in so many ways that I thought it'd be a great time to connect the pond. And since he's a digital champion for small business, I'm going to let you, Eoin, introduce yourself and talk about some of the things that are happening in Dun Laoghaire.
That's great. Thanks, Keith. And it's a real pleasure to reconnect. And I remember our meeting very well. I had my little son with me at the time. And I suppose that's a theme of where my career has gone since we met. You know, I really want to see my son growing up and having opportunities in the locality, not having to go to city centre, not having to have a long commute, not having to see his children in turn do the same thing. And that's kind of what motivated me in my hometown here of Dun Laoghaire to set up this initiative called Digital HQ. And basically, we're a social enterprise that is trying to put communities back in control of their economic destiny. What you'll hear at the moment in the background is my bell of mindfulness, because we all need to take a breath every now and again, Keith, and that's my hourly reminder to take a breath and a pause and reflect on what I'm working on, what I'm doing, and why I'm doing it. So what our initiative here in Dun Laoghaire town does is we activated the local small business around digital. So we run campaigns called Love Dun Laoghaire campaigns, where we go and we interview local small business owners. We take their picture outside their store, and we then push that out over our social media networks. And it gets great traction, gets great engagement, and it reminds local people that you don't need to buy from the big tech multinationals that will ship to your door. You actually have local small businesses that can respond to all your needs, and they create the jobs in the locality. Another aspect of what we do here in our what we call a digital growth hub is we market our town to attract more remote workers and knowledge workers. We'd love to see vacant retail buildings that have been around a long time, they've been vacant a long time, converted into high quality co-working spaces. So our chairman, Chad Gilmer, has actually done this. He took 2 vacant retail spaces in the town and converted them into top class co-working spaces, which has meant there's a couple of hundred knowledge workers based in the town now, which are spending their money with local traditional businesses. So it's a kind of a virtuous circle that we're creating. I suppose where we're at now, Keith, is we're really excited about this because we want to take this model national. We feel that there's a great opportunity for Ireland, as we emerge from the pandemic, to rebalance away from this, 20th century obsession with cities concentrating more and more people on top of each other, compromised lifestyles and very, very high cost of living, etc., to enable people to see that, look, the future is distributed and local. You can live where you want to live and have a really good quality job wherever you are, thanks to the internet. So that's very much what we're doing. I suppose, Keith, what motivates me is I did a TEDx talk probably about a year ago. And what I was trying to do was summarize what's my real motivation in doing this, because it's not money. And it was very much to say, well, look, there's a certain degree when you look at some of the big challenges we face, be it communities, not enough jobs in rural areas, a high vacancy in buildings, no great career opportunities in rural localities, there's a certain degree of helplessness and a certain degree of hopelessness. And I thought, well, look, how did I get started? Like, what was the driver for me personally? And it was very much to try and make a difference, make an impact. And I thought, well, look, what if we just say, right, in Dun Laoghaire, all we had was one person, me, getting started, getting kind of a digital initiative going. And then what we were sort of saying to people was, look, just use your smartphone. You don't have to make a big investment, and start using the tools that are widely available out there. Because in an interesting way, Keith, there's a huge democratization of accessibility to the tools to help grow businesses, help communities happening at the moment. But the knowledge of how to use them in the right way has been lacking.
And
And I
that's
think that's what
key.
we've, That's what I think. I think, Keith, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet here, but I think that's gradually what we're getting here in Dun Laoghaire town, is that we have this concept called digital first communities. And this digital first communities model, it says, do what you can with what you've got. If you've got concerned citizens, if you've got vacant space, if you've got basic digital knowledge, then you've got enough to get started with. And it's the getting started bit that we really are trying to encourage people to do, because then once you start developing momentum around this digital growth agenda, you'll be amazed where it can take you.
Absolutely. You know, and the thing I'd like to add on that, when we met, I went out to Dun Laoghaire. We took a look, we walked the pier. So some of the things that you talk about, even in your TEDx talk, are real. And I found there something very similar to here. The locals are the ones who have kind of, maybe it's the media, maybe it's the locals, but some disparagement is not much. And I agree with you, because I've got the same tool.
Yeah,
you can do
we all
from
have.
Anywhere. And two things have happened. So in the period of time since we first met, I have been back in Ireland 3 other times. I've been in Dun Laoghaire each time. The library is phenomenal. The resources that are available to any person. The change in some of the business activity streets, you know, I've seen it cleaned up, I've seen a lot. And everything you talk about is very similar here. So we have a technology revolution, reuse, pride in local, compounded by a global pandemic that was a reset button. That mindful moment you took is something that I think the entire world had a chance to take a deep breath and go, is this really what I want to spend my time doing? Is this important? Do I have to commute to a city center anywhere? Or can I do it right where I am? And all of these things to me are just such a powerful influence for us. And any empty space can be turned into an art display, a temporary pop-up retail for a startup, or a whole startup incubator itself. And we have the same opportunities and issues that you talk about. And getting the media, which, you know, I'm not really a part of, but I am, after 25 years in corporate and doing corporate work and writing content, I found that the narrative, that old style, I call the old school news, if it's bad news, put it on the front page, and everybody has this fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that's that doomsaying, and that's, I think you had written something, that's what set off my calling you. The title was, does despondency sell more newspapers? And it doesn't matter print or otherwise, it does, and it's concerning. And yet, most details today come about because people search. And they're not searching for death and destruction. They're searching for new business, for opportunities, a place to eat. So we share.
And opportunities for their children, Keith. You know, humanity is a hugely optimistic species, you know. And so while the media taps into the kind of the reptile part of our brain, the kind of the fight or flight fear part of our brain, we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the next generation to tap into the creative and optimistic and future orientated parts of our brain. And that's very much over the next 15 or 20 years, that's going to be becoming increasingly more important, because technology, artificial intelligence are going to increasingly remove the kind of jobs that kept quite a lot of us busy. So we're going to have to increasingly rely on the more creative parts of our brain, right? So and look, I'm a technology evangelist. So you know, when I graduated from university, God, nearly 30 years ago, my final year project was an artificial intelligence automated system for helping run the faculty. So I could see the potential for taking away tedious, menial jobs. However, when I went in and presented at the time to the faculty officers, they said, "Get that thing out of here. That's our job." Right? So there's that tension as we go into the next 10 years. Where are the jobs going to come from? And what I'm suggesting is that increasingly social enterprise, which is a third way. You know, you have the for-profit sector and you have the charity sector, but there's a whole new sector that has to evolve in the next, I would say sooner than 2030, we're going to be facing a jobs crisis, because AI and technology will increasingly remove, you know,
at a faster pace too.
At a very faster pace, Keith. So the onus is on us, people who are trying to push a better way of life for people, to can see where will those jobs come from? What will those jobs look like? How can we empower people using the digital tools we all have available to us to do those jobs? And that's very much what we're trying to activate rural areas around this, because you don't need to be in a city center or a factory anymore to contribute and to contribute to your full potential. And I believe many of the jobs in the next 5 or 10 years will come from social enterprises that are helping repopulate rural areas, that are setting up digital growth hubs, that are helping training people for the next generation of jobs and repurposing. And that's an exciting prospect.
Very much so. And the creativity part, I think, is so critical. I always think of this quote I associate with Henry Ford when he was asked, if you asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
That's right.
And you mentioned to me before we started talking on screen about your son and bicycling to work versus sitting in a car with a car idling. The visual of that is what I'd like to end with, because it's, to me, it's so important to start that creativity early and to let young people see that having tangible things, looking at it and looking at the world differently. And if you wanted to share just briefly what that was.
Yeah, look, I suppose, we all have personal responsibility for the choices we make. And, the kind of the fool's pardon of, well, look, I didn't know any better, or, it's too hard, it's impossible, I don't know where to start. I don't think that's going to be good enough. With the climate crisis that we face, with the looming jobs crisis we're going to face, we all need to do our part. And what I was trying to explain to my 7-year-old today was, we were arguing about, I love cycling, I love cycling with him. It's great fun. We meet people along the way. It's a sense of community. We know all the pedestrian ladies who help us go across the road, another social enterprise job. We meet neighbors. We get in the car, what do we see? Tail lights for, all the way off into the distance. Lots of other frustrated people stuck in their little cans on wheels. So this morning, I was just trying to make it real, Keith, because, it's hard for a 7-year-old to get it. Look, it's a chilly day in Dublin today, in Dun Laoghaire. So I got out of the car. I said, listen, I'll just show you one thing before we go. Every day we have a choice, right? We can jump on the bike and we can meet people along the way. We can catch up with schoolmates, or we can go in the car. When we go in the car, and I got a kind of sort of roll of paper, white paper, and I just put it up against the exhaust pipe. I turned on the ignition and I held it there. It's a diesel engine. So I held it there for 30 seconds and I kind of took it off then. And the thing was absolutely covered with soot. And I said, every time we make the choice to go by car, we are joining all those other people doing this, pumping this carbon dioxide and soot into the atmosphere, and make, I have to keep it at a 7-year-old's level, see those birds flying over, they're trying to breathe this air that we're pumping out, or the sky is
very visual.
gray. It's got to be visual. It's got to be visual. It's got to be visual. So anyway, I didn't want to guilt trip him too much, Keith. It's not fair to, but I just wanted to make it clear. So he turned to me and said, okay, Dad, can we just drive for today? I'm going to cycle tomorrow. Right. so
it's a start.
Progress.
And to me, that's the key to all of this, right? So you took a mindful moment, and I have from artists that I work with and love their work, the yes, right? And every time I'm concerned or say yes to change, say yes to creativity, work with the things you have. And it's
one small step at a time, Keith.
Each of us. It's just wonderful catching up with you. It's amazing to see the similarities of how we're addressing issues, and call on me anytime, but I do love what you're doing, and thanks for joining me today.
Well, Keith, it keeps me going, talking to people like yourself, like-minded people, because if enough of us are promoting what's possible. What's possible? Amazing things can happen. Amazing things can happen.
True that. Thank you.